Hey everyone, Chris here. I did a video a while back discussing a playtest session I was involved in, and I figured it's time to do another. I recently played in a level 18 session, so we got to try out some of the more potent stuff, and I thought I'd share our experience. Pretty much gonna do a blow-by-blow of the two combats we did in this session. I'll run through it as quick as I can, and I'll play a couple clips from the actual session. At the end, I'll give some thoughts about impressions of the playtest from our game. So first, here are the characters. We have Caspar Foresight, a Halfling Fighter 1, Swashbuckler 17. Caspar is a bow user, now with a longbow thanks to the new heavy weapon rules. The idea was to use goading attack from Swashbuckler and then to hide so enemies would have disadvantage to attack the other characters, as well as deliver some damage. We had Kazgan Dazzledust, a Halfling Fighter 1, Celestial Warlock 17. Kazgan was strength-based, and the idea was to use spells for things like Foresight and Spirit Shroud and Eldritch Smites and other spells that didn't rely on charisma. The reason to go strength with a build like this is it just combines better with the combat feats as they're presented in the playtest. The player figured about 20 DPR was thanks to going strength rather than charisma based. Kazgan used a pike with a Polar Master and Great Weapon Master. We had Arnold, an Orc Champion Fighter 6, Berserker Barbarian 12. Arnold is a Maul user, and there's obviously some crit fishing. With Barbarian hit points, 20 Constitution, and Tough, he had way more hit points than any of the other characters.
I will outlive all of you. You will die around me.
We had Bernard McKilborn, a Cloud Goliath Battlemaster 18, dual-wielding a Warhammer and a light hammer for Nick. The idea with Bernard was Battlemasters get that free D8 maneuver every turn now, so that means unlimited respites and a bonus action commander strike for Caspar every round for extra sneak attacks. We had Brandlebund Chain Yankee, a Goblin 18th level land druid. Brandlebund was high enough level so he could cast in Wild Shape, so the idea was to use a bonus action Wild Shape for Great Eagle to fly to low danger areas, then support the party with some AoE spells, control, healing, and other support. And I played Not Quite Right, a human 18th level Wild Magic sorcerer. At this level, you roll twice on the Wild Magic table and you choose your favorite result. So I wanted to see how often I could use Tides of Chaos to trigger Wild Magic and use Sorcery Incarnate to metamagic like crazy. Before you stands a mighty mage, magical energy swirling around him, faster and faster, until it sparks, making a disturbing hissing sound, and stops like frozen in time. Then after an extremely unhealthy grinding noise, starts slowly swirling again, and he addresses you. I am Not Quite Right, the sorcerer of wild magic. Now I realize you may have heard some things about me that might disturb you, like things in my presence having a habit of going wrong, sometimes horribly wrong.
Affirmative.
Now, I don't have a list of what magic items every character had, but we all had a potion of speed, heroism, invulnerability, healing potions of various levels, and I had a staff of power and a robe of the Archmagi, so needless to say, some powerful stuff. We were 18th level. However, even with all that, we still almost lost the second fight, so I guess it's a good thing we had those items. The DM was using creatures from Flea Mortals from Matt Colville, and I have to say, these were some extremely powerful creatures. Also, so many unusual traits, it really kept us guessing what horrible thing they would do next. I have not personally read the book, but our DM said he was pretty impressed with it. So before the combat's begun, we had a little bit of time for some preparation. So to set up Encounter 1, we were fighting a dragon from the Flea Mortals book, a fire giant Forge Caller, a fire gaunt, a couple of flame priests, and according to the official rules, this is more than twice the experience points of a deadly encounter. But if you play high level, you'll know that deadly encounters at high level aren't really deadly if you optimize even a bit. According to the designers, encounter difficulties are going to be addressed in the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide, though I'm a little skeptical if they'll go far enough. I guess we'll find out. For initiative, I use Tides of Chaos for advantage in both encounters, and Bernard McKilborn always uses Ambush for a D8, which is basically free for the Battlemaster at high level, so why not?
Alright, so for the Eternal Initiative, I'm going to use my Ambush for my free D8.
Okay.
And for my initiative, Tides of Chaos!
Yes. I will just give you advantage on initiative because I'm pretty sure you're going to roll that every time.
I had precast Tasha's Otherworldly Guise as we knew we were going to be fighting a dragon, so I had fire immunity and flight from that from the beginning. So, round 1. Bernard wins initiative and uses Cloud Giant's Jaunt to get to the central area. He uses Commander Strike to give our rogue a reaction sneak attack, which does 40 damage. Then Bernard follows up with 3 attacks for a total of 40 damage more. At the end of Bernard's turn, the dragon takes a villain action, which is a bit like a legendary action, but it has limited use, and it gives itself 100 temporary hit points on top of its 585 base hit points. Brandlebund, our druid, is up next. He casts Ice Storm on the dragon and the Forge Collar for 29 damage to each of them. Both of them failed, and we discover that this dragon's dexterity saving throws are not so hot. He moves onto the bridge and has to make an acrobatics check, which he makes, so he doesn't fall into the lava. One thing our 18th level party did not have was a lot of flight. I just noticed that actually going through this whole thing again is that I might have been the only one who had a reliable source of flight in the party, and that's through my spells. I was up next, so I did my bonus action to set up Innate Sorcery and Sorcerer Incarnate. Then I cast my big spell. So sorcerers get Wish. Wish requires a lot of DM fiat unless you're replicating a spell of 8th level or lower, which is actually fairly circumstantial. There's a lower list of spells that you actually want to replicate with Wish than you might think. So I decided to go for a spell I knew I'd probably use, Psychic Scream. I don't hear this one talked about enough, but it's a good spell. So this is a 9th level spell. Targets up to 10 creatures, and with a reasonably good range. If they fail their saving throw, they are stunned, they take a bunch of damage, and they repeat their saving throw to get rid of the stun, and it does not require concentration. So I added Distance Spell Metamagic so that the spell would reach the Flame Priest, and I also added Heightened Metamagic because I could add 2 Metamagics because of Sorcery Incarnate to give the dragon disadvantage on the saving throw. Everyone failed their saving throw. Great. But the Fire Giant Forge Collar and the dragon both have legendary resistances. The dragon doesn't exactly have legendary resistances. It has the Flee Mortals version of that.
And then for Xantirolis, we'll make an intelligence save and fail. He has Ireful Defense. When they use Ireful Defense, they can succeed, but the attack rolls have advantage until the end of her next turn, which would matter more, except you all have advantage anyway. So.
But nevertheless, it can automatically make its saves when it needs to, and of course, they both use them. So they take half the 43 damage for 21 each. The Fire Gaunt and the Flame Priest can't even make their saves, even if they roll a 20. So they're all basically permanently stunned and effectively out of the fight. Wild Magic surges, and there were no really big options to choose from. So my character is surrounded by some epic theme music for the rest of the fight, and I fly over the lava and I dive in. Might as well enjoy my fire damage immunity. Then comes the dragon, which moves into position for their breath weapon. This triggers Bernard's Brace Maneuver, which hits for 15 damage, and again, they can use it for free because High Level Battlemaster. The dragon's breath does 67 fire damage, save for half, in a 90-foot cone. Also, the fire remains in the area until the end of the dragon's next turn, and it's difficult terrain, and if you enter the area or start your turn there, you take more damage. Also, any mundane metal items we were carrying were melted. Now, I was immune to the damage, but when you are a high-level sorcerer, wild magic, and you have Tides of Chaos, you want to use it every opportunity, so I used it on my saving throw just to use it up. The rogue made their saving throw, so took 0 damage thanks to evasion. Everyone else in the party failed to save, took the full 67 damage. The druid had a pre-summoned air elemental, and that was vaporized. After that, the dragon flew up 30 feet into the air. Arnold was up, so he bonus action dashed using the Orc's aggressive feature, and his speedster feat came into play, so he could ignore the difficult terrain. He made his acrobatics check to cross the bridge and engaged the Fire Giant Forge Collar, doing 52 damage over 2 attacks. Casper the Rogue was up. He fired at the Forge Collar and hit, and he used Goading Attack, but the giant made it save. Still, he did 33 damage. Casper then moved out of the fire area. Kaskin the Warlock cast Jump, then jumped onto the bridge, made his acrobatics check and failed it, and fell into the lava, taking 36 fire damage. Now, he was resistant to fire, so he took 18. But he doesn't care because he's a Blade Pack Warlock, so he runs up to the stunned fire gaunt, lays into it to hit for 47 damage, and ends up healing all the damage he took because of Life Drinker. The Fire Giant Forge Color was next. He activates his Furnace Armor as a bonus action for an armor class boost and attacks Arnold 3 times with his hammer. Arnold takes a bit of damage, but Arnold gets a reaction attack through Berserker and crits for 25 damage. That takes us to round 2. So Bernard is up first and uses Commander Strike for Caspar, who does 51 damage to the Fire Giant Forge Color and attempts another goad, which again doesn't work. Bernard attacks the Fire Giant, uses Action Surge, doing 64 damage. Next up is Brandlebund, who uses a bonus action to wild shape into a giant eagle, flies the other end of the map, and then uses the Land Druid's Nature Sanctuary to give Arnold and Bernard a bonus to their armor class. I'm up next. I cast Sorceress Burst. This is the playtest cantrip at the dragon for 24 cold damage. I then cast Arcane Eruption, the other Sorcerer playtest spell, and I apply Quicken and Careful Spell because of Sorcerer Incarnate, and I upcast to 5th level, and I roll 25 damage with Incapacitation on a failed saving throw. The Fire Giant Forge Collar rolls lucky and succeeds. The dragon can't make the saving throw, so it uses its second legendary resistance. They both take half damage. Wild Magic surges again, and I get 2 options. The first is all my action spells take a bonus action to cast. That sounds really good, but it is deceptively terrible. Because when you have Quicken Spell and tons of sorcery points, you don't want to not be able to cast spells with your action. The other option was a fireball centered on myself. So that's normally one of the worst options, but hey, I'm immune to fire and nobody else is in range, so kaboom! Never thought I'd pick that if I had the option. The dragon takes the villain action. Remember, this is like a legendary action, but get this. So this one is called Supernova, and all creatures within 120 feet of the dragon, that's the entire map, which is all of us need to make a DC 21 Constitution saving throw, and if we fail, we take 40 fire damage, 32 radiant damage, and are blinded. And you get half damage and not blind on a successful save. I, of course, use Tides of Chaos and make the save, and this was actually kind of funny because everyone made the save except for our 20 Constitution Barbarian. They failed and they were blinded. Then it's the dragon's turn, and their breath weapon doesn't recharge. They have a bonus action which does some damage to Arnold and Bernard, and then they use multi-attack and Arnold is hit with a bite, which ends up triggering both Arnold's Berserker reaction and Bernard's Sentinel feat. The dragon is hit once and takes 17 damage. The claw attacks move the target, so Arnold is thrown into the lava for 38 more damage, plus 78 damage from the attacks, and Arnold is almost down. He's taken almost 200 points of damage in less than 2 rounds of combat. So Arnold crawls out of the lava on his turn and attacks the dragon. He uses his action surge, might as well while he's still up, and does 105 damage to the dragon. So we notice something here. The dragon needed to make 4 saving throws against Topple. But because its saving throws are so high, it was only going to fail on a 1, which it didn't. Weapon Mastery DCs are just falling behind at these high levels. Also, with everything huge or bigger, things like the pushing attack don't work, and Weapon Mastery just didn't have much of an impact at all in this session. Caspar was up next, attacks the dragon with a longbow, does 31 damage, tries go to attack again, and this time the dragon actually failed the saving throw and has disadvantage on attacks against anyone but Caspar, who then, of course, hides. Finishing up round 2, Kaskin jumps into the central area, moves up to the dragon, casts Spirit Shroud at 5th level as a bonus action, and lays into it for 82 damage. We move to round 3. Bernard, as usual, gives a Commander Strike to Caspar, who hits for 47 points of damage. Bernard uses another action surge and does 80 more damage. The dragon takes its final villain action. Cinderfall creates a 30-foot radius cloud that is heavily obscured for anyone but the dragon, and potentially poisons anyone in the area as well. Now, we all have Hero's Feast. We're not going to get poisoned. But the obscurement messes up advantage on attacks, which most of us have. It means the dragon is going to have an advantage on attacks against us. But because of the goading attack, they'll be straight up. Brandobund was up next and had trouble figuring out what to cast with no line of sight. He ends up doing a Mass Cure Wounds for 27 healing. I know he wanted to cast Heal on the Barbarian, but without line of sight, you just can't do that. Then I'm up next, and I cast a Quickened, Heightened Arcane Eruption for 30 damage. I know the dragon just cannot make its save against his spell. The dragon uses up its last legendary to take half damage and avoid the effect. Magic, of course, surges again, and I gain resistance to all damage. This dragon's legendary resistance has a drawback, so all attacks against it have advantage until the end of its next turn, so that gives me straight up attacks. So I use my action to make 2 Staff of Power attacks. Since I have Tasha's Otherworldly Guise up, I can make 2 attacks using Charisma, and I blow 2 charges from the staff for some extra damage. Next up was the dragon, who tried to take revenge on me, but got a natural 1 on their attack. And again, they would have had advantage on that attack, but Caspar had goaded them, so they didn't, and they missed. But I was hit with a claw attack, but have the damage from resistance, and it could move me 15 feet, but I was immune to fire, so throwing me in the lava didn't do anything. The final claw attack hits Arnold, who does not have immunity to fire, and he's thrown into the lava again, which would have taken him to 0 hit points, but his Relentless Rage kicks in, and he restores 24 hit points. Bernard takes a Sentinel reaction attack, but misses, but throws on a Precision attack, turning that into a hit for 13 more. And that Precision attack is free, because it's on a different turn. Battlemasters get so many free dice with that extra feature. Arnold was up. He crawls up out of the lava again and attacks the dragon.
It's like the Terminator 2 theme. I fall in the lava and do a little thumbs up, and then I pop back up, and I crawl up the wall. I'm back. Dun 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 dun.
36 damage over 2 attacks, and uses his second wind for healing. Then Caspar's up, and he doesn't bother to go this time. He's just going to hit, do the max damage for him, in this case, 41. Then Kazkin.
You might finish it.
Oh, I'm going to finish it big time. I got 4 attacks this round.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's a miss.
Oh, wow. I might not finish it.
Oh, no.
I'm going to spend a bend luck on that 16. What the heck?
All right.
No,
doesn't do it. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to do uses of Eldritch Smite, though.
Okay. That'll probably do it.
That'll probably do it.
That'd be 10d8.
Oh, yeah. Very unlikely. Yeah. All right. You have done in for Xantirolus, the Ashen Song.
So, just a bit of a recap of the damage numbers from the first encounter. Of course, there's a lot more to combat than damage, but it's something that we can quantify. And area of effect damage is a little bit different, so it's kind of weird to compare it to single target numbers. So what I've done here is if more than one target took damage from area of effect, I have the damage to secondary targets for these results. So our land druid was doing other stuff, of course. On the round he did damage, he did 44. I was burning legendaries, which I got through, but I never got to take advantage of. Darn dragon died just too early. Still, I did 68 DPR. Our Berserker Barbarian was pulling in solid damage at 73 DPR. Our Bladelock I kind of figured would end up at the top of the list, but wasn't. He did 74 DPR. Our Battlemaster wasn't doing big damage with any attack, but he was constantly nicking and doing reaction attacks, and it just chipped away, and he ended up doing 76 DPR. The highest damage was Caspar the Rogue at 81 DPR, though we got to remember that a lot of that is thanks to the Battlemaster using Commander Strike. So I have to say the Battlemaster was probably the all-star of the first combat. So let's get into Encounter 2. This one was about 8 times deadly. That tracks. It was almost a TPK, you'll see. We did all drink all those potions we had beforehand. So we had speed and invulnerability and heroism. And we had a short rest beforehand. And I got all my sorcery points back by casting Magic Missile. Check out the 18th level Wild Magic feature for the details on that. So we're in pretty good shape going into Encounter 2.
Got to ask, how are people feeling about playing martials at high level?
I'm surprised about how good all the other ones are doing. I figured the Warlock was going to run away with it, but the Barbarian's doing insanely good.
I'm doing very well, yes, thank you.
Our opponents were 2 Stone Giant Rock Speakers and a Titan from Flea Mortals we knew nothing about. but we knew it's going to be pretty powerful. Round 1. So I won initiative. Of course, I used my bonus action to set up Innate Sorcery and Sorcery Incarnate and cast my second best spell because my 9th level spell is gone. My 8th level spell is Sunburst. There's not great choices for sorcerers with 8th level spells. I would have loved Maze, but had Sunburst, so I heightened it on the Titan. The Sunburst does a huge area of effect radiant damage. I rolled 34, which is a bit below average, and anyone who fails their saving throw is blinded. One stone giant succeeded on their saving throw, and the Titan failed but didn't bother to use a legendary. It's immune to the blinded condition anyways. I roll on the wild magic table, and my next spell that deals damage is gonna deal maximum damage, so I'm super excited. Like I said, we all drank potions of speed, so I used my hasted action to hide, and that allowed me to use my Tides of Chaos. At this point, the Titan takes a villain action. It's a DC 25 wisdom save to all of us, or take 34 psychic damage and become vulnerable to all damage the Titan does until the end of its next turn. I make the save, so I take half damage, and I get resistance from the Potion of Invulnerability. And Brandlebund makes it as well. The fighter uses Indomitable and makes it, and the rogue fails by 1, but I have my reaction, so I use Bend Luck, and he succeeds. Arnold is up next. He runs up to the stone giant, uses Action Surge and gets 96 total damage, and uses Second Wind. Bernard is up next. He does Commander Strike for Caspar, who hits the Titan for 42 damage and a goading attack, and Bernard attacks the other stone giant with an Action Surge for 86 damage. Kazgan goes next. He uses a bonus action for Spirit Shroud, attacks the same giant as Arnold. He uses Outer Smite on a critical hit, and 3 attacks later, he didn't even have his bonus action attack, he's done 185 damage in 1 round. Jesus. That's Blade Locks for you. Then Caspar's up, and there's this trick with haste and rogues, so you take your hasted action to attack, and then you ready an action for an attack right after your turn is over, so you can get a second sneak attack. So he does that, and he does 86 damage to the stone giant by Bernard. Brandlebund is next. He does bonus action to turn into a giant eagle, and I'll let him explain.
So I have Spell Sniper, which affects Sword Whip, and I also have the level 14 ability from Druid that says if I'm making an attack roll, I can add 300 feet to anything with a range of over 10 feet.
Oh my god.
So I can make a melee attack from almost 400 feet away. Because I wanna hit someone with a Thorn Whip from across the room at least once.
That sounds fun.
Anyways, the Thorn Whip hits for 18 and pulls the Titan 10 feet. Next is the Stone Giant Rock Speaker, which uses its Prismatic Rays. The dexterity save on this one is just 17. So if we fail, we take 37 radiant and are blinded, but we all make our saving throws, so we take half of that, and then half again because we all have resistance. So we're feeling pretty good at this point. Next comes the Titan, which uses its Catastrophic Breath.
He ignores resistance to lightning damage. You take the full 74.
Oh, that's not good.
So yeah, 74 damage to Bernard, not quite right, and Bran, and you're all teleported basically right next to him.
It's fine. This is fine.
All right.
Everything
Then with a bonus action, he's going to use his Shockwave. A psionic shockwave emanates from Goxamak. Each creature of his choice within 15 feet must make a DC 25 strength saving throw.
I refuse to roll that.
I don't refuse to roll another roll. I cannot succeed.
Yep. So strength save or take 10 damage and be pushed 20 feet away from him.
And I go from almost full health to almost dead. And we're on to round 2. So I'm first, and I still have my 7th level slot. So I get into position to hit both enemies, and I fire a 7th level maximized lightning bolt. I use Heighten to impose disadvantage on the Titan, and I'm not at all confident with lightning damage, so at this point I figure it's time for a transmute spell. But I'm getting ready to deliver 96 damage to both enemies. And they were doing lightning, so I'm going to transmute it. We'll make it acid. We'll make it thunder.
Very good. Goxamak is immune to thunder damage.
He's immune to thunder. Son of a bitch.
He has a long list of damage immunities, actually.
So yeah, that happened. At least it finished off the stone giant. I roll on the wild magic table and I become large size for the next minute. I'm almost dead, so I use my potion of supreme healing with my hasted action. So it's the Titan villain action time, and it uses Rumble. Everyone except Caspar makes a DC 27 dexterity saving throw or is knocked prone, restrained, and embedded in the ground. And we all fail. Now Bernard uses Indomitable and gets asked this question. Does a 46 make it? To escape, if you're embedded, you need to use your action, in which case you can make a DC 20 Strength Athletics check or Dexterity Acrobatics check to escape, otherwise restrained and prone. So Arnold is up and he's stuck in the ground, so he uses his action to escape and succeeds, and he runs up to the Titan and hits for 34 damage with his hasted action. Now if you're wondering why he didn't use his haste action to escape, well, you're limited in the actions you can do with haste, and we checked it, and it doesn't look like you can use the hasted action for escaping. Bernard is next, and he wasn't stuck in the ground thanks to Indomitable, so he uses his Commander Strike for Arnold, who hits for 16 damage, then he follows it up with attacks for 44 damage, and uses Second Wind for some healing. The Titan takes a reaction for Volcanic Punishment, which does some damage to Arnold and Bernard, and he teleports 30 feet. Then Kazgan is up next, and he is also stuck in the ground, so he uses Dimension Door to free himself, and then teleports up to the Titan. Gets up from prone, and then does his hasted and bonus action attacks for 43 damage total. But he adds on Eldritch Smite for another 31, so 74 total damage. Not bad when you spend your action casting Dimension Door. Caspar is up next and uses the haste trick. The first attack misses, so he uses his action surge for a second attack on the same turn and gets a crit. Does 66 damage, does goading, but the Titan makes the save. Then he does his reaction off turn attack for 38 more damage. Total damage, 104. Not bad. Brandlebund is stuck in the ground and he decides, you know what? I'm just going to stay stuck in the ground. My action's too valuable. So he creates a nature sanctuary for Bernard and Arnold to up their armor classes. And then the Titan is up. It rolls to recharge the breath weapon, which thankfully doesn't recharge. So it bites Bernard for 56 damage. That's one of its 5 attacks. And then Bernard is grappled and restrained and near death. Does 2 claws on Kazgan for 33 damage. A stomp attack thankfully misses Kazgan. And then it has energy eyes that it can do at 600 feet of range. And it hits me. So I make a dexterity save, DC 25 or 24 lightning damage with no resistance, and I fail the save and I'm almost dead again. And we're on to round 3. So it's my turn. I'm still stuck in the ground, so I quicken a Dimension Door and I get as far away as possible from that darn Titan. Fuck this shit.
Hey.
Goodbye.
Cowards! Look at him run!
Wild magic surges and I recover all my sorcery points again. Okay. If only I could convert sorcery points into hit points. I have no idea what spell to use on this thing, so I decide to test acid damage. So I use a Sorcerer's Burst cantrip, and you can choose all kinds of damage types with it. So I choose acid, and it does only 9 damage. But it takes the 9 damage, so at least I know acid works. I use my hasted action to hide using Tides of Chaos. Figured this would save me. It did not. Arnold was up next and does 59 damage with attacks. And the Titan actually falls prone to topple, so I guess it had to happen eventually. And then the Titan takes a villain action, Thunder. It teleports along with any creatures it has grappled, and it teleports over to the other side of the map, and any creatures within 30 feet of where he left or appears. All make Constitution saving throws with a DC 27 or take 32 thunder damage. And then Bernard is up next, currently in the Titan's jaws, but they're a Cloud Giant Goliath, so they use their bonus action to teleport out of the Titan's mouth and can attack for 69 total damage. Kazgan starts their turn way out of range, but they have a bonus action to cast Jump, and they can get into range with haste. Thanks to the Potion of Speed, they can reach the Titan and still attack 3 times for 91 damage, and the Titan goes down. And it's replaced with a new form at full health and all new villain actions, and now we don't get resistance to either lightning or thunder damage that it delivers. So the Titan takes a villain action, a DC 25 strength save to anyone nearby, or take 22 lightning, no resistance, and is absorbed by the Titan.
Okay, so Caspar and Not Quite Right are now inside of Zagamak.
If we can do 60 damage in one turn, we will be shunted out. Caspar is next and inside the Titan, both restrained and blinded. But he has foresight, so it straight up attacks. He hits for 47 damage, but doesn't figure he can get another 13 with his regular action on the same turn, so he readies another attack to occur on Brandlebund's turn, who is up next, to see if they can combine for 60 total damage. So it's Brandlebund's turn, and Caspar attacks and does 43 damage. So Brandlebund needs to do 17 more damage, so he casts his 7th level spell, Firestorm. Rolls a 29 for damage, and the Titan saves and takes 14, and we're 3 damage short. Brandlebund is still embedded in the ground, so has no way to do any more damage with his hasted action. It's the Titan's turn, and it uses Lightning Breath because it's a brand new creature, so it doesn't need to recharge. It's a DC 27 dexterity save, and even the fighter's Indomitable didn't help them, and Bernard and Brandlebund both go down. Now Caspar and Not Quite Right are quite happy, actually, to be inside this damn Titan, where we would have gone down too. And it's round 4. So it's my turn, and I take some damage at the start of my turn being inside this Titan, and I am almost dead, but I'm still going. So I decide to do a quicken dimension door to get as far across the map as possible. Should have just stayed where I was. This thing can just teleport everywhere. Wild magic surges, I cast Fly on myself with no concentration, and I'm dealing with a 40-foot ceiling, so that's not much help. With my action, a Sorcerer's Burst cantrip for 14 damage, and my hasted action to drink a potion of greater healing. Then it's the villain action.
Oh, yes. Very good. Okay. He is going to use a villain action, and that villain action is Behold True Power. Each creature within 120 feet, which just includes Arnold and Not Quite Right,
I'm down.
has to make a DC 25 strength save or take 50 lightning damage. Andrew moves 60 feet in any direction. Yeah, I think that's what he'll do. He's going to drag people in closer so he can keep AoE bombing you. I think that's a good call.
Okay, so it's Arnold's turn, and everyone is down except for Khazgar, who's inside the Titan, Khazgir, and Arnold. Arnold uses a hasted action to feed Bernard a greater healing potion.
Stop sleeping on the job. We got a guy to kill. Come on.
And uses the Orc's bonus action dash and attacks and gets 90 damage total. Caspar is expelled from inside the Titan. Bernard stands up, feeds a supreme healing potion to Brandlebund with a hasted action, uses Second Wind with a bonus action, moves up to the Titan and does 48 damage with attacks. Next up is Khazgir, who uses a bonus action Celestial Warlock Healing to get Not Quite Right back up, and then casts Scatter with his Mystic Arcanum to spread out the party. And he uses the hasted action to do 22 damage with one attack. Caspar is up, and he can go back to his usual routine, so he does the hasted trick for 90 total damage. Brandlebund is up next and uses his highest level slot, 8th level, to cast Heal on Bernard. And then the Titan is up. It uses a bonus action to teleport, and it recharges its lightning breath and hits everyone except for Caspar for 81 lightning damage, no resistance, DC 27 dexterity save for half. I'm down, and so is Brandlebund. And it's round 5. So I'm up, and I make my death save, and I make it. So I'm alive, but unconscious. And then it's yet another villain action. Thunderstruck. Everyone who can hear the Titan within 120 feet, that's the entire map, makes a DC 25 wisdom saving throw, and if they fail, they're dazed, and it has a repeated saving throw to remove the effect at the end of each of your turns if you fail. We have multiple characters on the map who are just going to be dazed for the rest of the fight. This is when we realize there's no way to remove the dazed condition, so hopefully that gets added to either lesser or greater restoration. Now, we weren't 100% sure whether daze prevents the hasted action, but we assume hasted actions were still okay, and us lucky unconscious people couldn't hear the Titan, so we weren't dazed, but everyone else failed their saving throw. But Caspar has the Mage Slayer feat, which basically gives you an automatic saving throw, so he uses that. Good timing. Arnold is up next, and he's going to feed a potion to the Blade Lock, but then he realizes that he can't and keep raging because he has no bonus action while dazed. We also realize that if he loses his rage, he cannot rage again. because, again, he has no bonus action.
Hold on, Bernard. You can heal thunder, right? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, there we go. Ah!
So he uses his movement to get up to the Titan and his hasted action to attack once for 35 damage. Next up is Bernard, who feeds the Warlock a greater healing potion, bringing him back up and moves back up to the Titan, but he can't attack because he's dazed. Kazgir isn't interested in attacking right now. He heals himself with a bonus action, then drinks a supreme healing potion with his action and greater healing potion with his hasted action. He's feeling a whole lot better. Now, I should mention at this point there was this magic item that allowed the Barbarian to share any healing that the Warlock got that was magical. So the Warlock just wanted to put on as much magical healing on themselves as possible to help out Arnold as well. And Caspar's up and he's just fine. So he does his whole hasted thing and does 95 damage. Brandlebund is up next. He gives Not Quite Right a healing word, so I'm going to be up for a couple seconds. And then he uses a Ray of Frost, which does not hit. And then it's the Titan's turn.
Jesus.
Do it now! Hit me! Do it! I'm here! Come on, kill me!
And guess what? Yep, its breath recharges again. It bonus action teleports. Oh, did I mention its teleports do damage to everyone around it? Well, they do, and I'm back down. Then the breath weapon takes out Bernard, and Arnold is almost down, and we're pretty much out of potions. And that is how we end round 5. So round 6. So I'm first and dying with 1 failed death save thanks to the lightning breath.
Oh!
Yo!
Not quite right. Please teleport me next to this fucker.
I move up to him.
What?
I break the staff of power!
Oh, God!
Fuck you! 144.
All right, and that that is it for Zagamax.
That was a tough friggin' creature. Holy crap.
No kidding.
Okay, I'm going to give some DPR numbers for Encounter 2, but a couple things I should mention. There were a lot of turns where people were hindered or unconscious, and I included those in the average. If you're unconscious or dazed, or you have to Dimension Door to get 1 hasted attack, your DPR goes down, but that's just the way it is. However, Brandlebund, Bernard, and Kazgir each had turns where they intentionally did other things than do damage, so I did include those rounds for them. And Brandlebund comes in at 11 DPR. Now, his character wasn't made to do damage, and that 8th level heal spell did come in clutch. And I should note that, the best thing a druid can normally do for damage is summoning, and summoning really would not have been effective here. These creatures were all doing area of effect damage several times every round, and they were all immune to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. I just don't see how summoning would have worked in this scenario. Also should mention that Brandlebund cast Foresight on Caspar at the start of the session, and he could probably take some credit for that. Next was Not Quite Right, so even with the power move at the end, I come in with 54 DPR. I lost a turn due to being unconscious, and a couple turns Dimension Door plus a cantrip brought that average down. Still, 54 isn't bad. Next is Bernard with 62 DPR. Not nearly as many Sentinel attacks came up this time around, and I don't think there was a single repost attack. Then Arnold is next with a solid 66 DPR. He lost a few attacks due to that daze condition, but never went down, and he was never really close to going down. Now we jump up quite a bit to Caspar. Rogues with multiple sneak attacks per round do a lot of damage. 85 DPR. That's higher than Combat 1. But that wasn't the highest DPR. The highest DPR went to Kazgin, our Warlock, who came in with 93 DPR. That's including a round where they only did 22 damage because they Dimension Doored and then attacked. Take these numbers, of course, for what they're worth. My takeaways were that when it comes to spells versus weapons, it really depends on what you fight. Both these big, tough monsters had ways to easily escape any force cages or walls of force, making lockdown and control nearly impossible, and having more hit points really made a difference. The Blade-packed Warlock is really good, and I think it ultimately needs to be toned down. But I don't think it's maybe as big a gap as I was concerned about. There's a lot of little things that the marshals are getting that make up a lot of that ground that we don't always take account of when we're working out DPR numbers. The fighter's Indomitable is amazing. That's no surprise, but it does run out. Our fighter player also said they healed over 100 hit points that session with Second Wind. Oh, And Wild Magic was really fun, I have to say. I roll Wild Magic every time I cast a leveled spell that entire session, though it actually becomes a challenge to figure out how you're going to use your Tides of Chaos every round. Just thought I'd share our experience. Thanks, everyone, and until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. I'm not sure if I'm going to do video or not, but I probably will if I can make time for it. Would anyone have issue with voice clips for them, or would anyone prefer to remain out of voice clips?
You can use my voice clips. That's fine.
Okay, I definitely.
Yeah,
I was hoping you would say so because I made that joke at the beginning and you were the only one who laughed.